Welcome to Hyphenated. Here we talk about all things yarn and knitting. I'm Gabriella.
And I'm Jane, and today we're going to talk about yarn crawls because this weekend is the Los Angeles County Yarn Crawl, and it is the first crawl since the pandemic started, as far as I know. So I think the yarn community is pretty excited here, so we figured we would talk about what it is, why people go, and what to expect.
Yeah.
So, what's a yarn crawl?
What's a yarn crawl? A yarn crawl is, here in the Los Angeles County, what we normally have is participating yarn stores will all be open during the same days for the same hours, hosting different events, having different specialties. And what happens is customers are given something called a passport, and the passport shows all the different yarn stores. And the customers go from, you try, basically it's almost like a bar crawl. You try to go to as many yarn stores as you can, and you get your passport stamped. You also get a cute little button. And basically what it is a way to get to know all of the different stores and what they have, what their different niches are. Some stores, like one of the stores that I worked in, specialized just in natural fibers. Some other stores might specialize in more hand-dyed types of yarns, things like that. Every store kind of has a different vibe to it and has different products, and so it's a great way to get to know all of those different stores. But there's a lot of really cool events as well. One of the stores that I worked at we had a contest, fastest knitter contest, one of the nights, and that was really fun. And there was a prize given out. I think each store has a prize, like a basket or something like that you get to.
Yeah, so in LA County, each store will get a basket from the organizers. The organizers will, solicit sponsors who are yarn manufacturers and accessories
needle
manufacturers or whatever.
Or something like that. Exactly.
Get prizes donated and then assemble big prize baskets for each store, so that every store at the end of the crawl can pick from their raffle of passports a basket winner, and then anybody who gets to every single store gets their passport put into the grand prize drawing for the big, giant, huge, crazy basket full of, I think, like hundreds of dollars.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Products.
Yeah.
And then I think that in some years, because LA County is so big, and at one point I know there were up to like 30 stores participating, they did it by region. So if you got, I don't know, it was like groupings of stores so that it was more manageable for people to try to get to all of those stores in that group, because to get to 30 stores across LA County is pretty intense.
Really spread out. Really spread out.
With the traffic and everything.
Right.
So, yeah.
And the passports, it's a sheet of paper that has every single yarn store listed with a little square, and you get it stamped, as I said. But at the end of the weekend, it's 4 days. Is that what you?
Here it's 4 days. This year it's 4 days. Yeah.
When you go to your very last store, you hand in your passport. It has your name and your contact information and all the stores that you got stamped at, and then from all of those passports, that store will use those for their drawing of the basket. So that's how that works. And
So I like to think of it as sort of like an open house for yarn stores. It's like every store is putting their best foot forward. I know, having worked in stores and attended some of the yarn crawl organizing meetings on behalf of the stores, there's a lot of work that goes into organizing it. All the stores have to come to agreement on the terms of the yarn crawl. So here, for example, in LA County, I know the rules have to do with like what hours the stores are going to be open on those specific days of the crawl, because everybody will have the same opening hours. those days. There's also an agreement that you can't have additional sales on yarns because they don't want one store to say everything in the store is 20% off.
Right.
Because that wouldn't be fair to the other stores, obviously. And then, of course, each store will try to get trunk shows or events, demonstrations, additional prizes donated. I know at the first store I worked at during a yarn crawl, I got, I think, the needle vendors to get us like sample sets of the needles so that we could do needle tastings. Sounds weird. And we would get like lots of prizes donated. We had, I think, a woman doing live crochet on a dress form, which was really neat. Spinners do demos a lot of times. 'Cause that's something that's really fun.
That's
cool
really
to
cool
watch.
to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, so we would just try to get as many different kinds of events and cool things in the store so that people would have more incentive to come visit our store. I know that at that time that store was a big carrier of Madeline Tosh when, you know, there weren't as many hand dyers on the market, and so we would always like hugely beef up our inventory of Madeline Tosh right before the crawl so that we could say we have the, you know, most colors and most quantities of that kind of yarn.
They might have like a specialty dye for that weekend, or you never know.
Or like custom colors, exclusive colorways from dyers.
We had at our store, the last store that we worked at, we had exclusive colorways from a particular hand dyer out a while that you could only get at our store or something like that. And but it's really fun. It's really fun to go. And
each store will have a featured yarn and featured project
to go with it.
The idea is a 1 to 2 skein project. There will be a knit pattern and a crochet pattern. They're both free, and then the yarn that is called for in those patterns is 10% off, I think, 10 or 15%, a small percentage
usually,
off.
Yeah.
So I know at the store we worked at, we picked one of the cashmeres to be the featured yarn, and that was cool. A lot of people were really drawn to that because getting a bargain on cashmere is not that common, and so it was, I mean, 10% off is not really a bargain, but it was
a reasonable, doable price on something that was like a luxury fiber.
Skein.
Yeah, that was really nice. It like turned out to be a really nice project for not a huge amount of money.
Neckerchief thing that used a lot of lacy patterns, so you know, you got more surface area out of the skein.
Yeah, it was really pretty and really nice. And it's also a great way to try something that you haven't tried before, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have a small project. You don't have to invest a sweater quantity's worth of yarn and the expense of that to try a fiber you may have wanted to try, or to try a colorway you may have wanted to try, or something like that. So that's also really cool. And I think a lot of the stores tend to have more smaller projects available as well, because yarn crawl isn't generally an event where you're going to be selling massive big projects, or blankets or anything like that. It's going to be, a lot of people are going to be wanting to have smaller projects, or hats or shawls, or really short, like little scarves or cowls or something like that. Yeah, exactly. So even socks or whatever. So it's fun though to, what we had a lot of the times where people would go and groups of people would get together. Like sometimes there's yarn clubs, and they all had like their own like t-shirts made, and they would all get together. We had at one point in one of the stores that I worked at, people come in from Las Vegas, and they rented a limo. So they all flew in from Las Vegas. They rented a limo. They had a driver, and they were trying to hit all the yarn stores in LA County within those 4 days. It was hysterical. They were on fire. Plus, I think they were drinking the whole time, so it was even more funny. But it was really fun. And there was another group of people that came in a van. So it's just fun to see these, everybody that are coming in from the like fiber arts community, all getting out of the cars and stuff like that, and coming in together as groups of people that are all into the same thing. It's fun.
Yeah, and the vibe and energy is always good. Everybody's really happy and excited. So even though you were saying it's a little bit stressful to work them,
yeah,
because it's a non-stop wave of customers coming in the door, and you want to make sure everybody gets some help and attention,
greeted,
and
acknowledged. Exactly. It can be stressful from the employee side, because it is a lot. It's a lot. It's like you open the doors, there are people lined outside
Usually,
the doors.
yeah,
when you open, there's a line,
yeah.
and it's like, so you're like getting ready. It's a half an hour before you're supposed to open. There's already people lining up outside the door, so it can be a little bit stressful, but that goes away pretty soon, because it's also really fun. The energy. I loved working Yarn Crawl. The energy is always a blast.
Yeah, and people don't seem to mind waiting a little longer to ring up or whatever, because they know, everybody's in a good mood. So it's not like, I think it would be, it's a different situation when you have a line and people are angry.
Exactly.
This is a line and people are happy and having fun.
Yeah, so. That's really fun. And people are interested to see like what each store has, a lot of the time some of the different stores would have like a certain thing in the morning that was available just for the morning, or some stores had like, bagels and stuff like that. I mean, it just depends. Every store has a different thing going on, which is really fun. So what are some of the things that we want to watch out for or what not to expect? I think we've said what to expect, right, or what it's about, but what not to expect if you're going into a Yarn Crawl weekend.
Yeah, so I remember I had this new knitter as a customer, and we were preparing for the Yarn Crawl at one of the stores, and she was like, "What is this Yarn Crawl about? Why do I want to go to it?" And I was explaining, just everything we had talked about, like all the different events and features and stuff. And she said, "But am I gonna be able to find good prices on yarn?" And I said, "No, there's not really sales. So if you're really hoping just to find some deals on Yarn Crawl is not the time to do that, because of the agreement that at least in LA County, and I would imagine most other places probably do have something similar, that no store's allowed to put new things on sale. They're allowed to have their current clearance shelf or whatever they have, but it's not like you're gonna be getting lots of discounts on yarn during the crawl.
Yeah, it's definitely not for finding deals or for getting bargains. Like if there's already existing things on sale, great, but they're not. I think that you're not allowed to have everything is going to be 20% off or 30% off this particular yarn for this day only. I think the stores aren't allowed to do that. So that all the stores have an even playing field.
Right.
And that no store has an advantage on another one.
Right. That said, if you know what the featured yarns at the stores are, and that's something you've been wanting to try or buy a large quantity of, 10% off is not insignificant.
No, it can add up. Yeah.
Especially if you're buying, a larger quantity of the yarn. So.
Yeah.
What else not to expect, especially I know a lot of the regular customers at the store we worked at would kind of grumble during Yarn Crawl because
they wouldn't come during Yarn Crawl. That's not just grumble. They're like, "We're not going to see you for 4 days. See you later." And we would actually get more shopping done before Yarn Crawl because they weren't going to come for 4 days. It was so funny.
Yes. So the reason for that was because we had to suspend knitting help during the Yarn Crawl because we just simply didn't have the time or space to be able to assist, with actual how to knit or fixing up stitches or that kind of thing. when we're also trying to, show all the yarn crawlers around the store.
Right. Well, I mean, you're just getting inundated. You have so much more foot traffic coming into the store. It's not like just having, the normal amount of traffic in your store where you do have the same, time to help individuals. Now you've got 3 or 4 times that amount of traffic and you're trying to help everybody. So a lot of the stores will suspend knitting help or real specialized individual help. Like,
you've been trying to spend a lot of time finding the perfect project or whatever. I mean, sure, if you have a pattern in mind and you just need what yarn would work well for this pattern, probably most stores can accommodate that level of help. But I have no idea what I want to make kind of thing.
Or I dropped a stitch 7 rows back, or can you rip this out for me and get it back on the needles? That probably isn't going to happen during yarn crawl. Also winding yarn, right?
Yeah.
So if you have something in a skein, right, as opposed to a ball, maybe you can, whoops, here they all come now.
Raining yarn.
Yeah, so here's a skein, and here is this guy.
So you can buy balls like this, and that's fine. But if you buy these hanks or skeins during the yarn crawl, or anytime, you will want them wound up. And stores generally will do this. Most stores, I think, offer that for free. But during yarn crawl, I know at both stores I worked at, we just said, sorry, we can't wind yarn during the yarn crawl just because it's too busy. And even on a machine to wind it, it still takes manual power and time.
Somebody has to watch the yarn and be there with the yarn, and that person crank the winder. So that person who's winding the yarn is no longer able to help the person coming in the store asking about yarn or what the specials are or whatever. And so a lot of the stores won't be winding yarn during that time.
Yeah. So, but I know both stores I worked at, I think, said if you want your yarn wound, you can bring it back after the yarn crawl, and we'll be happy to wind it for you.
And if you're local, I mean, in some stores, for instance, at one of the stores that we had, we would hold the yarn for you until we could wind it, and then you could pick it up again. So depending on your store and what their facilities are like, if they have storage room or whatever. So depending.
Yeah. But mostly, I mean, despite those services that are unavailable during the yarn crawl, it really is fun to, especially if you have some knitting buddies that you can all load up together in the car. And, even if you're not, the couple years I did join in the yarn crawl as a customer, I never tried to go to every single store. But, I'd pick a few that I hadn't been to or hadn't been to in a while that I was curious about, and, get some friends, and we'd drive out and make a day out of it.
Yeah, exactly. You go get lunch, and then you go to the next yarn shop and stuff like that. It's fun. The other thing about yarn crawl that I also really liked is how, because it's the yarn community and the fiber arts community coming in droves, really you get to see, because people wear their stuff, you get really inspired by what they're wearing or what they're knitting on, and to ask people what they're working on, and it's pretty fun. I remember we got inspired to do those sweaters.
Yeah, we had, I think, 2 or 3 customers kind of in a row come in wearing the Weekender pullover not that long after that pattern came out. And it was just, seeing it in photos online is one thing, but actually being able to see it in person on a moving, human being is totally different. And we were like, wow, that sweater looks so good on all these
different body styles
people. Yeah. And so we were like, let's do a knit along after that.
Right. And we did a knit along.
Our own Weekenders.
And we also did a race out of it, which was super fun.
Yes.
Which she won.
So, yeah, it's great. And then, of course, all the stores will have, trunk shows or samples or whatever on display. So there's just tons and tons of knitting inspiration to be had during the crawl.
It's a blast. It really is. It's really, if you haven't gone, please go. It's super great. And I think the other thing that is wonderful is that it really supports the knitting stores, which are generally small, individual local businesses that, may be struggling as they're starting to, well, not only because of the pandemic or not, but as they go into the summer season in Los Angeles, knitting, sales tend to drop off a little bit because it starts to get warm and people don't really necessarily want to knit in the summer as much as they do in the winter. And so it really does help give the yarn stores a boost to get over the hump of the warmer weather.
Yeah. Hands down, they were the, biggest days of sales in, I think, at least in one of the stores that I worked in, because we really made sure.
Yeah, it was in one of the stores that I worked in too. Yeah, the little Santa Monica store that I worked in. It was a big deal, and it was a lot of fun. But it really did help because we got considerably less traffic in the summertime, and it just helped the store get through the hump of the warmer season. Yeah. But it's a blast, absolute blast.
So let us know if you've been to a yarn crawl. What's your favorite part about yarn crawls? Or does your area not have one? Is there a yarn crawl you've heard about that you would like to travel to attend? I think the one up in Washington State would be fun.
Ooh.
I think it's a few cities, the Seattle Tri-City area or something. They get together and do one. So, as always, if you are enjoying our videos, please like, share, subscribe, hit the little bell button if you'd like to be notified when new videos come out, and we will see you next time. Bye.